Right. Well, I know Brienne has a lot planned for us today, so maybe we should just jump in. First of all, thank you so much, everyone, for attending. My name is Susan Durnan. I'm the administration lead of the Mississauga Arts Council, and I'm also joined by my colleague, Mac's creative director and strategist, Jacqueline Mack, this evening. We would like to thank you for attending tonight's TD Culture Lab webinar, White Walls, a visual artist's first steps with Breann Ritchie, presented by Mississauga Arts Council. TD Culture Lab is generously sponsored by TD Bank Group. So a couple of quick reminders. At this point, if you can turn your video off and mute your microphone, that'll just keep background noise to a minimum and keep the call moving a little bit faster. It'll get rid of some of the lag that we can sometimes get on Zoom calls. If you would like to make a comment or if you have a question, there's a comments bar across the bottom. You can type it in that, and Jacqueline and I will be keeping an eye on it, and we'll make sure that we get to your question. If not, right when you type it, at the end, there'll be a section for question and answer, and we'll make sure to get your question answered then. Also, if you want to change the view you're seeing, you can do that in the top right-hand corner. There's a few different options of how you can view the slides and that sort of a thing. So that's housekeeping out of the way. The Mississauga Arts Council is dedicated to enabling the growth of the arts by creating opportunity and connection between artists and residents in Mississauga and beyond. Celebrating our milestone 40th anniversary this year, the Mississauga Arts Council is a registered charity dedicated to accelerating progress toward the attainment of our vision of Mississauga as a vibrant cultural community where arts and culture thrive. We would like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is part of the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit and the traditional territory of the Anishinaabeg, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, Ojibwe Chippewa, Métis, and most recently, the territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, who are direct descendants of the Mississaugas of the Credit. Great, let's get started. We are thrilled to present tonight's webinar, White Walls, a visual artist's first steps, and it is my pleasure to introduce tonight's presenter, Breann. Breann Ritchie is a visual artist and gallerist working in Mississauga and living in Stoney Creek, Ontario. She attended the University of Toronto and Sheridan Institute for Art History and Studio Art, respectively. She continues to broaden her knowledge of the art business by taking courses through Sotheby's Institute of Art. Breann actively collaborates and advocates for Canadian artists as gallery director at the Crescent Hill Gallery. She's been working with the gallery for 8 years and has contributed to the diversification of artists represented there. She works closely with these artists to hone their craft and project their message to broaden their collector base. Breann has also worked extensively with the art community in both Hamilton and Mississauga, organizing events that respond to the artist's needs and coaching artists on an individual level to reach goals they have set for their art business. Breann's artwork is completed in mixed media and offers quiet reflection on nostalgia and the beauty found in nature. Her work can be found in private collections in Canada, the USA, and Great Britain. All right, so take it away, Breann.
Nice to meet you, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen now. Great. Okay, so everyone should see what I'm seeing here. So I've got let me just go into the top here. Okay, so again, thank you very much for coming. This is great that we have you all here and you're all kind of varied in your experience levels and media and practices. So I wanted to ask a few questions first. I think the biggest one is, what does success as an artist mean to you? Because I found just in speaking with artists that success looks different to everybody. Are you looking to supplement your income with sales from your work? Or are you interested in committing to your practice full time? What do you envision as your career trajectory? So there's several different kind of trajectories in the art market, 3 main ones that we'll discuss today, but also a couple others that involve more of an entrepreneurial role. So the 3 main ones are not-for-profit, private or commercial, and the public sector. And then beyond that, there's online galleries. So this is work that can be done by the artist, and personal websites, selling directly from your personal website. So we can also check into, whether your work communicates a narrative, a message to your audience that you feel is important to explore. Is it a form of activism? So if it is a form of activism, there may be more interest in the public realm or more interest in not-for-profit, because you're having those conversations with the community and they get to comment, and things are addressed in different ways that way. In the private gallery sector, the work is more about being sold and finding collectors. Anyway, let me see. Do your pieces function as a collection or standalone works? How are your pieces presented? So are they wall hanging? Are they sculpture in the round? Are they new media, video works, photography, temporary installation? All of that needs to be considered. Documentation, press, and writing about your work. So these are 3 very important things, skills to kind of pick up as you go along, or take courses, just like you're doing right now. So we'll kind of consider all of these aspects as we go forward here. Art is never finished, only abandoned. I believe this wholeheartedly. As a painter myself, you can always go back to a piece, right? So I think it's a nice quote to kind of get in there. But the 3 career trajectories, as I mentioned before. So this is just a little bit of a better breakdown as to what you'll find kind of in those careers. So the not-for-profit sector are artists working with artists. So a lot of the time it's driven by membership base. So you pay a monthly or yearly fee, whatever the case is. And then in that, you would get member exhibitions, you could apply to be in the programming. And then there's a number of other perks that come with that for artists. Beyond that though, the shows that are shown there are generally reliant on grants for content and work and exhibition. So all of that is coming from grants from the government or grants from private companies, depending on where their funding comes from. And then there's public galleries or public spaces. Permanent installations tends to be a permanent installation in these spaces. So this is work that's been purchased by the gallery. For instance, our Gallery of Mississauga or the Art Gallery of Hamilton, the AGO, these are all public spaces. But there is some kind of crossover in other spaces, as we'll see kind of moving forward. They usually have public sales. They have major permanent collections that they review every once in a while. Or they'll have, curators come in and kind of pair things so that they have different conversations. So the artwork is always evolving. It's always having a conversation with something new. And then beyond that, the public comes in and has their say and their kind of, eye, and to see, what exactly is going on with the work and how they relate to each other. And then third is the private commercial sector. This is kind of the sector I know the most about. I've got the most experience in it. I work for a gallery, Crescent Hill. We're on Dundas. I don't know, most of you guys are probably from Mississauga, but we're on Dundas and Winston Churchill. So please come by and check us out. But we work with commission. So a commission contract, we have a collector base. There's sales through the gallery, and that's kind of what our main model is to get sales for the artists that work there and to project their message further and further. So to sell their work internationally. Working with art dealers. So we work with art dealers, we work with other galleries, we work with dealers that go on the road and have their own clients. And then there's an aspect of meeting demand for your work. If there is a great demand for your work, then you have to make sure you're still painting or creating however you create to kind of keep up with that. There we go. Okay, so prepping your body of work. So I heard a couple of you guys talk about, wanting to get into galleries and that type of thing. That there's a lot of prep, I think, that needs to go into that, and knowing what you're looking for and knowing, like doing your research on the galleries is a huge part of that. So you have to kind of consider whether the work that you have is cohesive. Are they functioning in collections? So if you're a painter, for instance, you could have a landscape collection, you could have still life, you could have abstract. If you're in sculpture, you could have, there's various different collections that you could have, but you want to have some kind of cohesion throughout the whole practice, I suppose, because it allows you to be recognizable, and ultimately that's kind of what you're looking for, is for people to recognize your work and appreciate that way. Is there an underlying theme, message, or media? So that's another way it can be cohesive. Do you have a commitment to your style or message? Is the work, so this is more practical, is the work wired or stored in a professional way to prevent damage? Wired, if it's sculpture, is it been wrapped in bubble wrap, whatever that looks like for your work? Make sure it's being stored professionally and safely. Documentation of the work, so making sure you're taking images and videos and keeping a log of that. It's great to look back at and learn from or get more inspiration from. And then artist statement, pardon me, bio and CV. These are kind of the bread and butter of submissions. So I believe Sherry said that you guys had done an artist statement webinar as well, which is great. So I hope that was really helpful for people. But it's also good to know that each, say you have several different collections within your work, you can have an artist statement for every collection. If your work is one-off, permanent or temporary installation or video or something like that, you can have an artist statement per piece. So it really depends on what you're trying to say and where the work is coming from, but all that should be present in the artist statement, and you can kind of have as many as you want of those. I think and it's interesting too when you look back through them and the progression in them to see your growth and to see maybe even just underlying themes that you've been consistently interested in and revisiting them. So beyond these things, invitations to gallerists for studio visits. So getting your studio looking good and organized and clean, and then going out to galleries and inviting them, or going out to shows and speaking to people and saying, you know what, come see my studio. I want you to experience the work where I make it. These are very personal visits. They're very intimate, and I think not everyone's open to them, which is perfectly fine. But I think it's a great way to get people interested in the work and to see kind of from the bottom up where it starts and grows, especially for gallerists, because it's something that they can use to sell the work. And then submitting to gallery rosters, calls for submissions, shows, and events. So this is all stuff that we should be doing in prep, and I'll kind of go in a bit more detail into these as we go. Okay, so if we're talking about a cohesive series or body of work, these are some questions that can kind of lead you in the right direction, or at least help with writing artist statements and that kind of thing. So can you describe the work in 1 to 2 sentences? What most excites you about the work and creating these pieces? Is it the process itself, or is it something about the final image, or is it something to do with the viewers? So what is resonating with the viewers of the work? Because that is really important, and that's not really something that you can control. And if you're looking into permanent collections in any capacity, what you set out to do may not be what it ends up coming out to be. And I think that's really interesting, because it's going to continue living, and it's going to have a mind of its own, and people are going to take it and run with it, and they're going to have comments and criticisms, and it's all interesting, I think, to kind of take into consideration. So what's new in your practice? What surprised you recently? What discoveries have you made? What ideas have sparked you to create? Where's the inspiration stemming from? So, what are you doing right before you decide you're going to go and create something? Like, what gets you going in that regard? What perspectives have I forgotten to explore? So this is a really interesting one, because especially if your work is activism related, or if you've got like a really strong message that you're trying to project, it's interesting to consider the opposite of what you're doing and say, why am I coming at it from this angle? What other angles can I, look at it from? Because the viewership is going to be diverse, and that's what you want. And the more opinions, the better, I think. That's what art is. It's a living entity, I think. Why are you creating this work? Are you creating it to sell it, to exhibit it, or for personal growth and exploration? So there we go. Okay, so I've got a few artists here, all different media. These are some of my favorite artists, and a lot of them are Canadian. Actually, let me think. I think just the one isn't Canadian. So let me just see here. So this is Kim Matlin. She focuses in painting, definitely. She has all different series. Still life is one of the biggest ones. Landscape is the other one. But you can tell here, like this is her own website. You can tell and see that she's got a very specific style. She's making similar marks and addressing similar things like light and shadow, color, and then perspective. So her work is something I've always loved, but you can see that there's a real trend, even through all 5 of these works here. They're all completely different works, but they have something in the mark making that's keeping them, together as a collection. So I wanted to go through her. Let me see. Nate Nettleton works mostly in sculpture, but they're wall hanging sculptures. So he kind of meets a few different markets that way, and that's a really great thing to do, because very simple line work, and he's always been interested in line work. He works a lot with wood, and these are kind of some of his pieces. He's got a few different series that he works in, but the underlying theme for him is line and material, I'd say. You can kind of see here. Some really beautiful pieces. I've sold a few to a few collectors, which is great. I'd love to get him on board. This artist here, Johan Deckman, I believe his name is. So he works a lot with the written word, but his works are wall hanging. You can get prints of them. You can get the actual book that he's done the print on. But I just think these are so interesting. They can speak to anybody and may have different meanings and may hit different nerves. So his work is very interesting, and then he always uses the same text. So there's a lot of kind of threads that pull it all together for him. This is Paul Elia. So he operates out of Hamilton. He's a photographer, but then he kind of adapts them, all the images. Very different stuff, but most of it is Hamilton and neighborhoods and that. But you'll kind of notice how everyone has a theme or an overlying media or something that's pulling everything together to make them recognizable. And this last one is Goja. So she works in sculpture. Her pieces are stunning to see in person. If you're ever able to see them, you should definitely get out to see them. All different ideas, but working with ultimately the same muse, it seems. Yeah, and I believe it's ceramics. Ceramics or porcelain. But so what contributes to a body of work? Cohesion can be foundational or loosely related. It can be found in media, mark making, anything that ties the work together. And if you've been creating for some time, you'll have an idea of what that is. It'll make itself known to you because it's something that you go back to over and over and over again, and you can't help yourself. So I think it just takes time and practice. But The pieces and their narratives may take on a life of their own. So I mentioned this, the message is in the eye of the beholder. It's important for the way your work resonates and gains interest, viewership, and ultimately a more widely broadcast message, which is what you're looking for, or even just more sales, if that's what you're kind of aimed at. Do you have a commitment to style? Are you branding the content that you're putting out? People want to recognize you and share in the conversation that you're having. What is your chosen media? Where does your practice have roots? Are you still experimenting? So that experimenting thing is it's huge. So even if you have, a line of work that you are selling and you're doing great with, it's important to keep experimenting on the side. This keeps your imagination going. You can get stuck in doing the same things over and over again, and there's something in that, which is great. And that is the practice. But I think that if you're not experimenting, then you're not really growing. You're not really pushing yourself. And that's what you're doing. That's what you're trying to do, is push yourself out of your comfort zone. And what promotional outlet is best highlighting for your work? So a lot of the time we found that Instagram or image-based outlets they tend to be the best, because that's what we're in visual arts. So Instagram has been great. There's been more and more sales on Instagram than any other platform, a social platform like that. And they've made it very easy to kind of create a shop for yourself on there. As long as you've got a website and things, you can kind of do that. So art is not what you see, but what you make others see. So calls for submission. So calls for submission, they could all be completely different. They tend to be asking for majority of the same thing, but they may have a certain way that they want to receive it. And so you have to be very careful with what you're doing, and just make sure you're doing your research on how exactly the gallery wants to receive your submission. For, here's the bread and butter again: artist statement, bio, CV. Most important things: images, obviously. Images, high quality images and video of your work, if you can take it. You want it to represent the work appropriately and accurately. So that's in terms of color, in terms of media, anything. You want to make sure that your images best represent the work, because ultimately that's what they're going to see when they get it, right? And they don't want to be whatever, not disappointed, but it can't be something different. It needs to be exactly what it is. So submitting to juried shows, these are weighted on your CV for excellence. So looking at someone's CV as a gallery director with the owner of the gallery, we'll go over our submissions once a month and kind of go through and say, these are promising submissions, but the CV is the most important part, because it really gives you a record of who's looked at this work, who's recognized it, and how long you've been working at this. So juried shows, they have a bit more of a weight to them, because they've got curators or arts professionals picking the pieces. So they're picked for quality, and they're picked to create a certain message for the show, depending on what the call for submissions is about. But the juried shows, again, like they'll have a bit more weight on your CV. Submitting to member shows, this is a great place to start. So gallery membership and community, artist run centers, even public galleries, like get your memberships to these galleries, support them, and they'll support you back. They have member shows usually once a year or twice a year, depending on how they're set up. And it's all funded and everything. And so you can get your work in there and start your CV off slow and build it up that way. And in attending these events and meeting these people, you're creating connections, and the networking is one of the most valuable things that you can do, is attend these events and meet people. So these member shows are very valuable in that respect. And then again, they'll help you build up your CV. Submitting to vendor events. So is this an appropriate venue for your work? So if if your primary goal is to sell the pieces that you're making, to get the work into collections, submitting to vendor events is a great way to do that. One big one that's local, well, there's Art in the Park. So I'm sure many of you guys know about that. It's at Visual Arts Mississauga. But another really big one is the Artist Project, and it happens once a year in February usually, although last couple of years, so it's a great event. I attend it every year. It's usually through the weekend, and you can apply to be accepted into to have a free booth to start. So if your work is of enough, it has great caliber, then you can submit, and they'll let you in to this kind of free booth and start you off there. And then you can kind of build up and make it into the bigger booths. They're a little expensive, but in my opinion, well worth it, because the amount of people that go through that show is unbelievable. And just from my own experience, coming in for the gallery, I go through every single booth. I want to see what's there. I want to see what's new. I want to see what's selling. And I want to see what's going to strike me, something I haven't seen before, because I attend it every year. There's a lot of people who do it every single year. So it's nice to see what's new. And then also to pick up artists there, which is great for the gallery. Let me see. And then submitting to gallery programming. So this is public, not for profit. So there's a few other things that you would need to submit to these galleries: mission statements, proposals. You may need floor plans, images of how the work will look, maquettes. You don't know until you kind of look on their website. So I have a few websites up I'll show you and give you an idea to kind of where to get started. And then again, grants, and the grants come through the gallery, so it's not something necessarily that you would have to submit to, but you may be on their grant and they may have some information that they require from you. The other huge thing for gallery programming, whether it's not for profit or public, is whether it resonates with the community and current events, so the zeitgeist. So is it relevant? Is it resonating? I think that's one of the bigger things, because you want to have a contemporary conversation with these pieces. They're temporary exhibitions, so they're usually open for a month to a month and a half. So you need to kind of be on the scene and know what's going on. Include press in your CV. This is just kind of a good note. Any press that you get for your work, whether you win an award, or if it's covered in a story somewhere in a magazine, if you've reached out to someone, a blogger, whatever the case, get it on your CV, keep track of it, and save the link if it's online, whatever, because you want people to be looking at that stuff. It's important, and again, it's just another way that people are recognizing you. And then again, if at first you don't succeed, try again. Continue to experiment, continue to push yourself, and then try and submit again, because you never know, right? Next year you could have moved forward enough and you can get into the gallery. So important things to note: commercial galleries only have specific times, some anyway, only have specific times when they're accepting applications to their artist roster. So some will actually send out a call for submissions. We're looking for this type of artist, or call for submissions open for the month of whatever. Some of them will accept them on an ongoing basis. So our gallery accepts them ongoing, and we check them every month, and we'll reach out to artists that we're interested in pursuing. But an artist roster is essentially a group of artists that are on the website and are committed to the gallery, and the gallery is committed to them. So in linking up with that gallery, you have access to all the collector base and the kind of established nature that gallery has, and the reach. So I wouldn't say email a gallery with a submission until you've thoroughly investigated their website. Have you attended the gallery? Have you been there? How do they operate in the art market? Where do they sit? Are they kind of, are they mixed? Are they just a commercial gallery? Do they focus on photography, wall hanging work? Do they focus on sculpture, glass, whatever the situation is? You have to do your research. You can't go to a gallery and just start submitting. You need to know what they're all about. And a lot of them, they'll tell you right on their about page. Because they're not just speaking to artists, they're speaking to their collectors, and they want people to feel educated when they move through the site. So if they put in their about page that they are into photography and that's kind of their main route, then someone who's looking for painting is going to know that this isn't the site for me, or someone who's looking for photography is like, perfect, this is exactly what I'm looking for. So the galleries have to consider whether you're a good fit for them, but on the other side, you have to really consider whether they're a good fit for you. And a lot of the information that you would need to make that decision comes through the contract, and we'll talk about that, and I'll show you a sample as well. So what is included in their artist package? So some of the things that you can look for, are they offering solo or group shows biannually, monthly, bi-monthly, quarterly? What's their promotion like? When are they doing it? How often are you included? What's their website traffic like? It's interesting to know these things. Some of them may not be able to tell you, but a lot of them are tracking their website traffic these days. And then what are their standards of professionalism? Have you talked to other artists about them? Do you know other artists that are represented by them? Have some chats, see what they're like, see if they're good to their artists, see what benefits they've got from it. And then you can also have those conversations with the gallerist as well, right? Like, most people are fairly open when it comes to these things, so it's good to ask whatever questions you have. So how well attended are their openings? How frequent are their openings? Some of them will have 10 to 12 openings a year. Some of them, like our gallery, we have 2 major shows a year, one in the spring, one in the fall. And then we may have another kind of event in between. So every gallery is different that way. And have you been to the event? What was it like? Did they have great food? Was there wine? What was the artwork like? How did they talk about the artwork? Was there introduction? Was there some sort of essay written about the work? So this is all important to know when you're kind of approaching a gallery. What press is available for them? Who do they reach out to about shows? And what is their community and viewership? And then again, what is expected of you as the artist? So this will be outlined in the contract, and yearly review and collaborating with your gallerist. So it's good to do a yearly review once you do get onto a gallery roster. Is this working for both of us? Is this relationship mutually beneficial? And then, you want to invite that gallerist into your studio and really have them understand what you're doing so that they can speak about the work accurately to their client base. So I'll show you, let me see here. So this is a sample artist contract. It's just between the gallery and the artist. Some of these things may change depending on the gallery and how they operate, but these are kind of the standard things that they kind of address. Things like shipping to and from the gallery to the artist, to and from the artist, and then once the work is sold to the client, how often you should be bringing work in, when the artist is paid, 30 days after receipt of payment from the buyer. Anything, let me see here, retail sales. Yeah. So pricing your work, that's another big one. And, a lot of them will address if you're going to make a price change, you need to give us at least a month notice so that we can notify clients and get some sales in before that happens. How long the work will be kept for if it is on consignment, will you be keeping it for a year and then sending it back if it doesn't sell? Yeah, and then renewing your contract and when that's appropriate. So this is kind of what it looks like. And then this is not the end all be all for most galleries. If something happens in your life and you need to let go of the gallery, they're not going to hold you to this, right? It's more for it's more for getting payments right and making sure that, you know, you're taken care of and they're taken care of, and who's, you know, insurance, and if something does happen to the work, what, you know, what goes through insurance and how that works. Okay, so commercial galleries, again, these are the three. So I was going to show you some websites just to give you an idea for call for submissions. Let's see here. Okay. So here's my gallery here. This is kind of the most basic, and the majority of the time, this is what you'll be seeing when you look at galleries websites. If you are submitting to a rostered gallery like this one, and I'll show you just what I mean. So these are the artists that are rostered with us. So we represent these artists to our clients, and any new pieces or commissions or whatever, that's all arranged through us. We connect with the artist. And in some cases, if it's a commission that's of personal nature, we'll invite the client to come with us and meet the artist and do studio visits with the artist to discuss what they want done in their commission or whatever the case is. So in this, I designed this website in 2020. I don't know what day it was. I believe it was 20. Yes, it was 2020, because it was right before, of course, everything shut down. So it worked out it was very good timing. So what I was very specific about when it came to submissions and the submission process is what was required and what wasn't. So most of the things on here are required, and by us putting that on the website as a requirement, it lets artists know that these are the things that this is the professional standard we're looking for. We want you to have a website, whether that's an Instagram page or a Facebook page or your own personal website. We need a website. Artwork details, we need some sort of file to explain what we're looking at, whether it's sizing or pricing or whatever that case is. Images, of course, curriculum vitae, so CV, your bio, bread and butter people, artist statement, email address, and name. But these are all important things, and it's a good way to let artists know that, you know, these are the main things that you need, and to submit. At least I know that I've got everything I need to, you know, go through and say, okay, no, I've got the bio, you know, I've got all these images. It's perfect. Okay, it's a cohesive submission. You know what I mean? It has everything that I need. AGM. So I guess they helped sponsor tonight, which is great. They're a beautiful gallery. I love them. But this is their kind of process for submitting, and there's a variety of different things you can submit to. So this is kind of interesting. These are past, but just to give you an idea, right? Call for artist facilitators. So yeah, call for Indigenous artists, fine craft professionals. These are very specific calls. Expressions of interest. So a lot of the time, or if they're just a curator, project proposals. So these are a little bit different because they're projects. They're something specific for that gallery. And there's a little bit of a different way that you need to be speaking about your work when you're trying to represent it to a public space like that. So this gives you as much information as you would probably need to submit. And this is just for artists. So I've got actually a few, so Toronto Arts Council, Mississauga Arts Council, Hamilton Arts Council, Kimbo, where's the other one? Mississauga, Kimbo. This one I found today, Art Connect, Artwork Archive. These are all different websites that just call for submissions together, so the artists don't need to look all over the web for them. So it's great. Keep them on your tabs. click on them every once in a while, see if something applies to you and start submitting to it. A lot of them have awards, they're international. So you want to kind of reach out as far as you can, right? And especially if there's an award, that's fantastic. Then you can add that to your CV. Federation of Canadian Artists. I heard someone talk about that earlier. Call for entry, another one. And then this one. So I included this because Visual Arts Mississauga is an artist-run center. So they have events specifically for their members. I've done this event, it's fantastic. So anyone who's interested in kind of dipping their toe to see what exactly, they can sell at an event like this, whether it makes sense for your work to sell at events like this. It's not too expensive. It's a one-day thing. And it's great because you're outside. So this is a great event, and it's annually. And you don't necessarily have to be a member, but if you're a member, there's more perks. So that's another one to consider. Okay, so promo and press. So in your promo and press, you want to have some personality. You want to stand out in some way that's affecting, that people are going to remember and go back to and be interested in what you have to say. So social media presence and branding is a major part of that. I think as artists, we kind of get stuck in our own worlds, which is a great place to be. And, it's safe. But I think that getting out and showing people what you're doing is really why you're doing it. It's an expression of yourself. It's an expression of your ideas. And it's important to get it out there and get your audience looking at it. So on these social media sites, exposure to a wider audience. So you have an international audience here if you're hashtagging or tagging people, whatever the case is. You can also do paid for promotion on this, or you could sell direct. So there's a number of great options for you if you just wanted to work through social media. Online gallery platforms, this is another great one. There tends to be fees, commission, shipping. They'll ask about prints if your work is 2D or can be made into a print. But they also have an educated collector traffic, which is invaluable. It really is. Some of these are so well known, and I'll mention a few. I'll show you some of them. Saatchi Gallery, I imagine a lot of you know. Singular Art, Artsy, there's a number of them out there, but they have this educated collector traffic. People who are looking specifically for art may know exactly what they're looking for, and they're just search engines for artists. They put together collections, they send out newsletters. So these are essentially galleries, but they operate completely online. So that's another great way to do it. They do take commission. It tends to be around 40 to 60%, depending on exactly what they do for you. But again, it's a great way to find collectors, get into the conversation, create community there. Yeah, they're excellent. And then there's personal websites. So making sure that your personal website is up to date and accurately represents your brand or the person that you are and the art that you create. So events, these are very important because networking is a huge part of this industry. It's a very social industry. And I mean, how can it not be? It's art, right? Everyone's talking about it. Everyone's out to see it. They want to experience it. They want to see the texture. They want to watch the performance, whatever the case is. It's experiential. And I think that attending these events soon, people, they're starting up again, is a huge part of it. Contributing work to these events. There's a lot of galleries that ask for donations of work. If you want to operate that way, you can. And that way you can contribute back to the gallery. You can volunteer at these events to start meeting people, or you can just attend and admire. Memberships, community, again, I spoke about that with public spaces and artist run centers. Get in those memberships. They're great. They have lots of benefits, and they're an excellent way to start off your CV. Working with collaborations. Find other artists, work with other artists, see what you can make together. I can't say enough about this. Even if it's not another artist, it's a designer, it's a art consultant. There's so many collaborations, bloggers, working with businesses. These are all so important for building your CV, building your collection, and then really finding who you are as an artist and what you want. Gallery press. So, it's, if you're working with a gallery, if you get into a gallery, what kind of press are they offering you? Documenting events, making sure that when you do attend events, or if you have your work in an event or an exhibition, that you're documenting it yourself. Hopefully the galleries are doing that as well, but you can't rely on that. And also you can get the best shots of your pieces because you know the best angles, it's the best. So you need to be there documenting events, be proactive in that. And then that's something that you can keep for yourself as well. You can keep looking back at it, and it's just a record of what you've done and where your work has gone. Are you top of mind? So this relates more to social media or newsletters. If you can send out newsletters. A lot of galleries send out newsletters. We send them out once to twice a week, so that we remain top of mind, and that there's always something new to look at for collectors. And it maybe they don't have maybe they don't have the funds this week, or whatever the case is. They don't like this group of artists, but the next group of artists, the next week, they, what, I think I'm going to buy that painting, or I think I'm going to buy that sculpture. If you're top of mind, they go to you first. Are you connecting with your audience? So respond to the people who are responding online. If they comment on your work, oh, this is beautiful, or I love the texture in this, or this really resonates with my community, or whatever the case is, connect with them. Find out why it resonates with them, because this is invaluable information as an artist. It's a way to grow. It's a way to move through your work, and again, connect with the people that you're making the work for. And then how are you talking about your work? What kind of language are you using? I think that's really important. And I think there's courses you can, or webinars, whatever the case, you can take that that allow you to explain your work in a way that's concise and accurately represents what you're trying to get across, without feeling nervous or anxious, or whatever the weird feeling is we have sometimes when we're artists talking about, our inner workings. There are no rules. That is how art is born, how breakthroughs happen. Go against the rules, ignore the rules. That is what invention is all about. So, tip for sharing. Let me see, actually. Here's the artist project. I was just talking about that. This is a huge event. You should definitely attend. And usually with call for submissions, just going back, sorry. There can be a fee. So this is online exhibition, but there tends to be a fee to submit your work. And that just helps with administration, and in some cases it just helps to go towards the gallery and all of that. But yeah. Okay, hold on, let me see. Here are some of the ones I was mentioning. So Saatchi art, this is probably one of the biggest in the world, or at least in North America, because that's where the majority of work that I look at comes from. Or yeah. My gallery specializes in Canadian work. But this is a great platform. everything is laid out for collectors to find. And I'll show you one of an artist that's brilliant, and he's from Mississauga. Victor Tichenko. So his pieces are just amazing. They tend to be portraits, figurative pieces. In some cases, he's working with still life, but the majority of them are portraits and figurative works. The variation of line, of texture, of style is unbelievable in his pieces. And he tends to go back to similar motifs. He works with similar colors. This kind of fluorescent color is a big one for him. But you can kind of see, like, this is his, I'll go to his page. This is his page. This is kind of what it looks like. Everything he adds, every comment he makes, every like he has on there of another artist's work, it kind of comes into this feed. So as a collector, you kind of go on here, okay, this is interesting, look at all this interest in his work. What pieces specifically? This is all stuff that feeds a collector's imagination and also contributes to the practice, I think. Yeah, so Saatchi art is a great one. You have your own profile, you can add all your credentials on it, all your artwork, you can add collections, favorites, whatever the case is. And then you kind of operate within a realm. You could obviously hit a few of these, but Artsy is another big one. This is a good one both for artists and for galleries because it's a platform that kind of represents them both. And again, the educated traffic is invaluable. The people who use this site know what they're looking for. They're starting a collection, or maybe this is their first work, but they know that this is a reputable site for art and artists, for shows, for galleries, like fairs, museums, all of this. So this is a great way to get your work out there and to be seen. Singular, very similar again. Depending on what type of work you do and whether you have several different collections. For instance, I have a collection of work that's painting. That's primarily what I sell, but I also have a collection of work that's sculpture, installation, sculpture and installation, a number of different media. That's not something I sell, but it's something that I show, and something that goes into exhibitions and has more of a conceptual meaning. But it's a great way you want to kind of straddle both of those worlds if you can. If you don't, no worries. Like it's your practice, something that you're going to move through life with, so it needs to work for you. But Etsy is another great one, especially if you're creating more of craft-based work. Well-known, easy to use platform. It's great. Again, Instagram from a desktop version. I don't think I can show you how the sales thing works on here, but you can see how cohesive Bluesmith is. Like all of his work is very similar in terms of mark making and inspiration. Obviously, the natural world. Pardon me, even when he's working with abstracts, some of the line work is very natural, it's very organic. And then artist websites. So this artist, she's been doing amazingly well. Her work is stunning. So I saw it at what's it called? I think it's called Patel Brown now in Toronto, and it addresses a lot of kind of myths and folk tales and that type of thing from where she was born in Sri Lanka. But the work is stunning. It's full of color and full of I'll show you. Lots of sculpture, painting. Like, look at the detail. It's It's gorgeous. I went to the show and almost everything was sold. But this is an example of an artist website that's of a professional standard. She's been showing for a number of years. She got picked up by Patel Brown, and they've really taken her places, which is fantastic because her work is stunning. But this is kind of what you'd see on her website. These are the different collections she works within, who's written about her work. So just to give you an idea. These are some great cross-posting tools. Hootsuite is one of the bigger ones. I haven't used Buffer, but this is great because then you can cross-post, you can post to Twitter, you can post to Instagram, you can post to Facebook. I believe you can post TikTok that way. And it's a great way to kind of maintain your brand, access all those audiences, and stay up to date. Worst news ever, Canadian art is closing. I don't know if you guys heard about that, but it's so sad. Okay. Okay, so these are just some tips for getting things right. Make sure the images you take of your work are high definition. So take them with a digital SLR, or geez, an iPhone these days can take these pictures. 300 DPI at the least, and 1200, at least 1200 by 1500. The larger the better, because you can always edit them down if you need smaller images. But if you've got the bigger images, at least you can move downward, right? Or smaller. Make sure the lighting is correctly representing the work. So the color, the texture, the presence of the piece, especially when it comes to sculpture. With Rajni, her pieces have such a presence to them. They almost look like they're real people. So representing them in the right way and right lighting, it all goes into it because it creates the experience for the gallerist or for the collector. And you can orchestrate that stuff. That's all on you. Or in some cases, the gallery, if you want to go that route. If you're planning to sell your work, establish a price list. So this can be based on a number of different things, but it tends to be based on what your contemporaries are selling their work for. So it's great to look around, people who are doing similar things have a similar experience level. Look at what they're selling their work for. A lot of our artists, they use a square inch formula. This is the easy, we operate in the painting realm. So that is the best way for us to do that in our sphere. But you can also consider collection-based pricing. So pricing it by series. You can also consider time spent, but the square inch formula, if you're working on canvas or on board, is a great way to kind of make sense of, this painting is this size, so everything kind of works together. Take videos of your work. Video is one of the fastest growing mediums on social media. It gets so many eyeballs on it, you don't even understand. It's the best way to access your community. So whether that's Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all of those, take as many videos as you can because you can take stills from them, but the video, you get proportion, you get lighting, you get to see texture in a different way, from different angles. So it's just a great way to represent the work. Yeah, create videos that work in tandem with your pieces, reveal something precious to the viewer collector. Again, they want to join in the journey and share in the secret that you have. They want to understand what you're doing and think, oh, wow, that's a really interesting new perspective they've taken on that since I've been following their work. They want to be part of your community and you want them to be part of your community. It's important that it resonates with people. Stay organized. So again, Hootsuite, you can maintain your brand that way. Keep, cross-posting. It's a lot easier. And you can get it done a lot quicker. And then you can get back to painting and making your work again. Get back in the studio. Keep all images in a folder that's easily accessed. This is an interesting one. This is kind of one that another artist mentioned to me. Label the images with the name of the piece and the size, depending on your medium. Just for quick reference, because in some cases, you look at your images, you're just like, is that a 2020? You know, it's like, it's just easier. You don't have to look it up. And then make sure your accounts and your website are up to date. Like if you're posting, you want people to recognize that you're posting maybe once a week or once every couple weeks, but just keep up with it and make sure things are up to date. So working with white walls. White walls is just another, I'm sure you guys know, but white walls is just another way to say galleries of any capacity. They tend to have white walls, although we've got a couple colorful walls in our gallery. And then I'm sure you've seen an exhibition that's got different colored walls in it. I know, I know that, what is it, Butter Gallery? Butter Gallery paints their walls all the time, and it just sets the work off, right? But it also allows people to, pardon me, it allows people to see how it might look on a different color in their home, you know? So a lot of the time we'll paint the walls gray or purple or something that you might see in someone's home. So they can almost like recognize that it could go in their house too. So gallery representation. So working with art dealers, some galleries work with art dealers, meaning that they have kind of, I guess, contractors that will come in, take some of the work with them on the road or show it to their clientele. So whether that's online or in person, our art dealer travels all over North, well, he's more Canadian based now, but he travels all over Canada throughout the year to go see his clients and bring them new work from our artists. So it's a great way to kind of get the work out of the gallery too, and almost bring the studio or then, you know, the studio experience to the client. So sales, so gallery sales and what to expect. So I've brought a few galleries onto the I've brought a few artists onto the gallery. Some of them you have to, I mean, setting expectations is what it's all about. But in terms of sales, especially if you're just with one gallery, you can't really expect that one gallery is going to be able to make your income for you. You may not get sales every month. You may get, you know, sales, you know, once a quarter or whatever the case is. Hopefully it's way more than that. But you have to kind of set your expectations and just, you know, speak to the gallery, keep in contact with them. What's working for you guys? Like what's resonating with your collector base? Have you had comments on the work? You know, what about the comments makes, you know, brings the work to life? So having those conversations with your gallerist is really important. Contracts, obligations. So what you're obligated to do for the gallery versus what they're obligated to do for you. All of that, again, is outlined in the contract for the most part, unless you've got some gentleman's agreement with the, with the gallery. In some cases we do, with a few of our artists. So what's the gallery's reach, and do they have an established collector base? How often do they reach out to them? And how effective is that outreach? You know, you can ask all these questions. They may not tell you, depends on the gallery, but I think it's important for artists to know. And, you know, for instance, our weekly newsletter goes out to about 3,500 people a week. And we, you know, I think it's about 35% open it every week, which is a great number because it's above average, way above average, which is fantastic. But this is kind of what you have to expect, right? Like think about yourself and having your own subscription to newsletters through your email. You know, you may look at it here and there, but some things may interest you more than others. You know, maybe you'll look at it this week, but you won't look at next week, whatever the case. Yeah, that's kind of where that number comes from. do the galleries work on consignment with the pieces, or do they purchase the work outright? So this is something that's interesting. Generally, these days, especially, the work is all on consignment. We purchase about, let me think, we've got a few artists that we've been working with for over 30 years. So we've got a very good relationship with those artists. And in some cases, we will buy everything that they paint. Now that takes a long time to establish. And you need to have trust in your artists, and that's the only way to do it, honestly, is the trust. But you know, trust in what they're doing, trust in what they're experimenting on, how they're moving, where they're going, how it's evolving, what medium they're using now. Like, just stay with them, you know. But work on consignment tends to be the majority of the time. There's less risk that way on both ends. And then you can also turn over the collection quite easily. So if, say, you have a collection on their website of pieces, a few of them aren't moving, it's been, you know, several months to a year, and they're not moving, you can take those pieces back and try them at a different gallery, move them around, you know. That's probably the best way to do it, because then you're kind of addressing different communities, pardon me, and you keep things fresh. So commission for a private gallery, it tends to be around 50%. And there's a number of things that go into that 50%. So the artist is really, all their job is to create the work. And that's what that 50% is all about. So you are paying the gallery 50% so that they can market the work, they can, you know, represent it accurately on their website, they can reach out to magazines, they can reach out to bloggers, they can reach out to content creators, whatever. They can reach out to their collector base. They do these emails. They're paying people to work in the gallery to advocate for your work. They're paying for the gallery to house the work, to store the work. So all these things kind of go into that 50%. So it may seem like a lot, but they're doing a lot of the business side of things for you. You're just committed to work, to creating the work. So I think it's great. Let me see. Wholesale artist agencies. Okay, so I worked for an artist agency in Mississauga. They are connected to the gallery that I'm working for now. Essentially, it's wholesale. So we have, let me think, we've got about 15 artists that we're working with right now through this agency. The agency, like I said, buys everything that they create, and then pushes the work to all the galleries that they work with. So their clients are galleries. So all of these pieces, so they may send, you know, 20 pieces to a gallery from several different artists, but they've got hundreds of galleries. So they're all over North America, and they're into the UK. And they're working with a similar artist agency in UK. So it's not even just like a few galleries, it's all of their clients in the UK. So in this regard, the commission is different. There's a different breakdown for that. They tend to get, the artist tends to get 25% of what's sold, and the remainder goes, is dispersed either between the gallery and between the agency. Sorry, am I wrong? No, that's right. So managing how your work is represented. So there's a number of artists that we work with that are very specific about how their work is represented, whether it be on the wall, at shows, you know, the list can go on forever. And if you are very specific about how your work is represented, you need to be vocal about that and let them know, because that's information that they need to know. And that's going to ultimately represent the work the best, because it's coming from you. So that's really important information. Working with third parties, so interior designers, art consultants. Oh, We've gone over time. Sorry, guys. Um, Interior designers, art consultants, these are great. I've mentioned bloggers a few times. These are all great because they've got their own audiences. And they may have totally different streams, right? Interior design, for instance, you could call it decorative art, but it could also have a very powerful message and a very powerful meaning. And these interior designers could find you collectors. So these are important people that they project your career, they move it forward. They find those people who are passionate about your work. And there's nothing like having someone come up to you and say, oh my God, I love your work. It resonated with me in this way, or it affected me this way. It made me cry. I've had people start crying in my gallery. It's incredibly emotional. It's a wonderful thing to experience as a gallerist. So I think, working with these people, it's just, again, another great way to get your work out there and to get a better audience for it, get your message projected. Stay connected, studio visits, yes. And what kind of feedback are you getting from your gallerist? Like feedback is great. It could, don't be hurt by it because it's just business. You know what I mean? At least for commercial galleries, it's just business. What sells the best, and this is resonating with our collector base, or this is working for our collectors. Whatever the case. I can give you an example. So I have an artist that works out of BC, but he paints landscapes, but he paints landscapes from BC, he paints landscapes from the prairies, he paints landscapes from Ontario, Quebec, whatever. But we find with our collector base, even though it's international, the majority of our collectors tend to be local. We do have quite a few in the States in that, but the local collectors are looking for landscapes that they recognize, or that resonate with them. And a lot of that happens when you grow up in these environments. So say you were from BC, or you were from out west. Some of those great, beautiful mountain landscapes may resonate with you more. So we've had to say to him a few times, the prairie scenes, they don't work for us, unfortunately. They're beautiful works, but they're just not moving in our gallery. If you're able to sell us more BC pieces, or if you're able to sell us more Ontario landscapes, I think we'll be able to do better with them. And that's feedback that it's not negative. You know what I mean? It's like, this is just what's working for us. You've got other galleries that you're working with, and but we're very specific. This is our niche. Can you kind of work with us? And there's nothing wrong with that at all. Okay, stay connected. Yeah, studio visits. That's it. What does success as an artist look like to you? So, questions, please.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Breann. I'm not a visual artist, but I'm kind of excited to, get painting and talk to galleries now. Oh, I'm just kidding. No one wants my lopsided stick people, but we do have some great questions coming through. So why don't I stick to those? So someone was wondering, when posting, this is kind of a very technical question, but when posting work on websites or online, is there a specific size that is sufficient for viewing by buyers, but low res enough that people won't be right clicking and getting a good copy of the artwork?
That's interesting that's the question that's asked.
Or would you recommend maybe watermarking an image if it's going to be posted online?
Yep, you can definitely watermark images. Do that through Photoshop. But I would suggest not bringing the quality of the image down. And I had this conversation with my graphic designer because someone had brought it up at the gallery, maybe we shouldn't put the highest quality images on here in case someone, takes a quick Photoshop, photo of it and goes and prints it. The watermark is the best way, I think, because you want to be able to represent it as best you can, especially because the amount of people buying online these days is unreal. When the pandemic hit, the gallery was doing, say, 50% online sales 50% in-store sales. And when it hit, everyone was locked into their house. And so everyone had to work online. They had to figure it out, and so we went and took pictures, beside the painting, of the texture, of, and different lighting, and whatever they needed, we did. But it was very important to represent the work on the website accurately and to the highest quality. So I would say I would watermark.
And maybe another option too is like a lower res of the entire work, but then maybe some higher res of close-ups to kind of give a sense of the texture. Is that something that buyers would be looking for?
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, I think texture is great, especially if they're buying online, because it gives them some experience of what it'll be like when they get it.
Okay. Thank you. So hopefully that answered your question there, Carlene. I know Jacqueline had a few questions, so maybe she can jump on and ask a few of her questions.
Yes. I was wondering, is there a place for digital artists like graphic arts, digital collage, something that is not traditionally based?
Yes. I think that, so any of the, Singular Art, Saatchi Gallery, those are big platforms, and you can kind of get known on those platforms. They put you into lookbooks, they put you into their newsletters. There's a curator that will pull your work and kind of place it with other pieces. That's a great place to start. But I think that any of these other routes are just as beneficial, especially for collage, because there's some galleries that focus just on collage. I love collage. It's amazing. There's so much you can do with it. Graphic design, again, yeah, you just have to do your research and look for the galleries that focus on what you're doing, or the media, or in some way you can kind of say, no, look, I'm doing what you're doing in a different way, and here's how. But yeah, I think you can reach out to any of those spaces and move that way with any media. I'd say stick to the media that you're most comfortable in, because in the end, you're going to create your best work that way. You're not pigeonholed, right? You're doing what you want, and that's ultimately what it's about.
That's really reassuring, as I know more and more artists are transitioning into digital and exploring that realm. And oftentimes I fear that it might be overlooked because it's not in the same oomph and caliber as a traditional artist, really going out there and purchasing those artist materials that cost hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So
yeah,
right, just like a
oh yeah, no, I think if that's how you're creating, then that's how you're creating. That's what makes you. So you have to find the platform that best projects that. And it can be online, because it can be translated beautifully that way. And it can be printed, depending on what the medium is. Like if it's video, no. But if it's, something that can be printed a number of different ways, we print it on canvas, you know what I mean? Like it can be wall hanging. So there's lots of different options there.
Perfect. Very wise. Another question is, let's say you have done your research on the gallery. How would you approach them? As I know, even for myself, it's very intimidating to reach out to the gallery. Is there a stigma, or is there a barrier that you can break down and say, nah, just go for it?
That's something I've heard a lot, and I've actually talked quite a bit about that to my clients, and to MAC, to the Mississauga Arts Council, about several different people there. It can be very daunting, especially as a new artist. But I think that if you are a new artist, you're looking for specific routes to start. You're not going to go to the AGO, you know what I mean, and talk to their curator. So you have to kind of start where it makes sense. So starting with those member shows, like get with artist run centers, Public galleries have memberships, get going to events, see what they do, you know, see what kind of artwork they're showing and what kind of conversations are being had. I think that research, it's really the only way to do it, because you don't want to walk into a gallery and say, how do I get my art in here? You know how many artists I've had come in and say that to me, and I've got clients that I've got to talk to. It's like, you know, as much as I want to have a great conversation with you about your work and how to submit to our gallery, I have to go speak to my clients and try to sell this other stuff. Like you know, this is my role. So I want to speak to someone who's educated in, you know, what our specialty is. So our specialty is Canadian painting and some sculpture, but most of it is painting. So if you come in and you work in photography, it's like, you know, I may appreciate your work, but we're specialized. So if you had looked at our website for 5 seconds, you would have realized that we don't work in photography because of these reasons, whatever. So I think it's a level of professionalism, right? You want to come in prepared, because those people they're trying to sell artist work and they're working very hard to do it. And so a lot of the time it's a matter of just not having the time to sit and explain it. And I think that's why this is great, is because we can have those conversations, you know what I mean? And there's no stigma or anything like that. There shouldn't be, but it's unfortunate that there is. And I think that's the only way that you can really combat it.
Yeah, be prepared, like you mentioned, and do your research, because there is mutual understanding and respect and time on both sides as well. And I completely agree with the first step. Do your research. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Exactly.
I'm going to jump in. We actually have a really interesting question. This is coming from an emerging artist, and she's wondering if there's specific ways or things to include in her CV or artist bio when she's sort of trying to reach out to galleries but doesn't necessarily have that experience, right? Are there other, you know, as a gallerist or a curator, are there things that stick out? And even though someone doesn't have the gallery experience, are there things that would sort of stick out and be
I'd say the main thing
noteworthy?
is the work or the images and then the video or whatever, you know, whatever the medium is. I've had artists approach me, and you know, the work is amazing. You know, it's something I haven't seen, it's something I've been looking for, or it's something that rounds out our collection in a certain way, or you know, there's lots of different ways that we look at it. And I think that if the artwork is of a quality that you can't ignore, you know, it's kind of like, I'm snatching you up. I'm snatching you, you know, like you want to get your hands on that artist first. So I've done that a few times, and we've been the first gallery for a few artists, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's fantastic to be able to represent emerging artists that way and to start their career off and to sell their work and see how it grows from the beginning. You know, there's a lot of galleries that represent emerging artists. And I think that, if the work has to speak for itself, you know, it has to resonate. It has to be, wow, like this makes sense. This is something that we can integrate into our collection and show our collectors and get clients buying.
I think that's a great answer. And you had also mentioned some of the art shows earlier where you were going to find new artists. So I guess if you're not getting snapped up at the pace you'd like, then maybe that's the route to go, right? The art shows
it really is.
To work your way through.
The artist project is, like I said, it can be very costly, but there are ways to get into it just on merit. So that's another way to do it. But then, you know, there's art in the park, and there's more local options that you can consider that are doing the same thing, and they're reaching an audience, and they're a great way for you to start selling your work and to start talking to people about it. And they're great practice, right? Not even great practice. They're great great things to have in your CV. But the artist project specifically, because it's a long-standing show, it's annually, it's annual. It's something that gallerists go back to, and not all artists would know that, but they have like a collector's, what's it called? A collector's preview or something like that. So the people who attend that, it's a big party, but the people who attend that, they're paying extra to be there for that. So they're looking for something specific. Hopefully it's not just the party, but they're looking for something that catches their eye. They want to be the first to see it because it's a preview. So all these things have created an immediacy to, like, to get people there and to get them to be interested. And so I think they've done their work brilliantly. But as a gallerist, yeah, looking at a certain level of artist, because some artists are beyond the artist project, they've moved beyond, or they're just below, whatever the case. But it has great promo. It has a great website. Now they're doing an online thing. And then the show itself is put on beautifully. So yeah, something to definitely consider. Yeah.
Great. I think we're running out of time, but there is one more quick question. Someone's wondering, do galleries, is there exclusivity with some galleries, or is that,
Yes.
okay?
Yeah, it just depends on the gallery. And that's, again, a question that you can ask, I guess, at any point in the conversation. But, it would come into play in the contract. Exclusivity, it's not found much anymore, unless you're kind of, Olga, Corper, Cooper Cole. Like there's a level of gallery when it comes to that, because they're representing you, they're offering you shows every other year, whatever the case. They are taking you to expos all over the world. Like that's the level of gallery that they would be asking for exclusivity, because they want to be the only ones who have your pieces. But within that relationship, they're also, they're so advanced, they have the collector base, all the work will sell for the most part. So it's a good trade-off when it comes to artists. And then eventually that contract will come up and you can maybe move on or move up or do some stuff yourself, whatever the case is. Yeah, so it tends not to be in like our level, not in like Crescent's level of galleries, but a little like higher.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And unfortunately, we are out of time. We need to get sending you off on the rest of your evening. But I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Breann Ritchie so much for this wonderful presentation.
No problem.
I'm sure we all
Happy I
learned
could help.
lots, and we're excited to sort of take those next steps. So thank you so much. Again, thank you everyone for attending tonight. I hope you got a lot out of this. TD Culture Lab will be returning in 2022 with a brand new lineup. We're also open to suggestions. So if there's a topic that you're dying to learn more about, shoot me a message. I'm admin@mississaugaartscouncil.com, and I'll add it to my growing list. In the meantime, if you're looking for more professional development opportunities or learning opportunities, all of our past websites and resources are available on the Mississauga Arts Council website. So you can visit us at mississaugaartscouncil.com/programs/TD Culture Lab. And if that's a mouthful, which it was for me, you can also just dig through our website. It should be easy to find under programs. So again, thank you so much, Breann Ritchie. Thank you everyone for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Yes, enjoy. Thanks for coming.
Thanks
Hope
so much,
to see you
Breann.
again. All right, take care.